April 1943, Eastern France. A thin veil of morning fog drifts across a muddy training field near Arras. German Panzer crews stand in formation beside their machines, the hulking Panzer IVs, the lethal Panthers, and the monstrous Tigers whose armor gleams with dew. Hauptmann Otto Kramer, commander of the 3rd Panzer Regiment, leans against the turret of his Tiger and watches with mild amusement as his men pass around a British propaganda leaflet. On it, a crude sketch of an American M4 Sherman, short, boxy, almost comical, stands beside a towering Tiger tank. Beneath the picture, a caption reads, "The Allies' answer to German armor." The men laugh. "Look at this," one of them snorts. "That's their tank? It looks like a bread box on tracks." Kramer smirks, lighting a cigarette. "They call it the Ronson. You know," he says, exhaling slowly, like the lighter. Lights up every time. The crew erupts in laughter. To them, the Sherman is an industrial joke, a mass-produced toy from a country that thinks quantity can defeat quality. And in 1943, they might have been right. Reports from Tunisia spoke of burning Shermans, their thin armor pierced easily by 88mm guns. In the steppes of Russia, the Tigers and Panthers reigned supreme. The Panzer crews saw themselves as knights of modern warfare, precision-engineered, disciplined, and unstoppable. Across Europe, the German war machine still believed it held the technological edge. But what none of them could see, not yet, was the storm gathering across the Atlantic. In the factories of Detroit, Chicago, and Pittsburgh, a very different kind of war machine was being forged. The Allies weren't trying to build the perfect tank. They were trying to build enough of them. August 1943, Detroit, Michigan. Inside the massive Ford River Rouge plant, the air hums with the sound of machines. Sparks fly from welders, steel plates slam into place. Conveyors groan under the weight of armored hulls. To a visitor, it looks more like an industrial cathedral than a factory, miles of gantries, steam, and motion. But to the men and women here, it's war. Foreman William, Bill, Haskins wipes sweat from his forehead as another M4 Sherman hull glides past on the assembly line. He's worked 16-hour shifts for months, his hands permanently stained with grease and graphite. "Keep 'em rolling, boys," he shouts. "The Army wants 2,000 this month." The numbers seem unreal, but this is America's new battlefield. Each Sherman that leaves this plant is part of a tidal wave. 49,000 Shermans will be built before war's end. Factories will churn them out faster than Germany can destroy them. Spare parts, engines, and tracks are interchangeable, a logistical miracle designed by men like Edsel Ford and William Knudsen, the industrial generals behind Roosevelt's arsenal of democracy. On the floor, a young worker watches a newly finished Sherman rumble off the line and mutters to himself. "Doesn't look like much." Bill Haskins hears him and grins. "Maybe not," he says, "but that little tin can's gonna help win the war." Thousands of miles away, in occupied France, German officers would have scoffed at that idea. But the truth was simple: the Sherman wasn't built to be a duelist. It was built to be everywhere at once, to cross oceans, to fight in jungles, deserts, and hedgerows, and to keep fighting long after a Tiger ran out of fuel. Every bolt, every weld, every rivet represented something the Germans had never truly understood: industrial willpower. The Allies were preparing not just for invasion, but for endurance. And when the time came, that endurance would roll ashore in steel. June 6, 1944, Normandy, France. The sea is chaos. Gray waves crash against steel. Landing craft pitch violently in the surf, their ramps slamming down into blood-tinged water. The air vibrates with the thud of naval guns, the rattle of machine fire, and the high-pitched whine of shells tearing overhead. Among the soldiers crouched inside the cramped landing craft are tank crews from the 741st Tank Battalion. Their destination, Omaha Beach. Their weapon, the M4 Sherman duplex drive, a modified, swimming, tank wrapped in a collapsible canvas skirt. Lieutenant Robert J. Parker, 24 years old, grips the hatch rim as water sloshes around his boots. The tank rocks violently. And the driver shouts over the engine noise, "Sir, are you sure this'll float?" Parker forces a grin. "It better. We're not much good at the bottom." The ramp drops. The sea swallows the Sherman whole. Many won't make it. 27 of the 29 launched tanks will sink before reaching the beach. But a handful, battered and half flooded, manage to crawl ashore. As Parker's tank grinds onto French sand, he opens the hatch and sees a nightmare. The beach is littered with burning vehicles, wrecked boats, and bodies. German MG-42s chatter from the bluffs, mowing down anything that moves. "Move, move," he yells into the intercom. The Sherman lurches forward, its treads biting into the wet sand. At the top of the ridge, Oberfeldwebel Hans Becker peers through binoculars from his bunker. He spots the ungainly silhouette of an American tank crawling toward the seawall and smirks. "Another Ronson," he mutters. "Light it up." An 88mm shell screams across the beach, a thunderclap of dust and steel. But the Sherman keeps coming. Another shell, this time. It glances off the slope of the front glacis plate. Sparks burst, but the tank doesn't burn. It halts, fires, and the return shot slams into Becker's gun position. The concrete shakes. Smoke fills the bunker. Becker stumbles back, coughing, as another Sherman crests the beachhead behind it. Then another. Within hours, the beach that had seemed impregnable begins to move. American tanks, once mocked as tin coffins, are now clawing their way inland, one hedgerow, one farm, one burning gun nest at a time. By nightfall, the Ronson has done the impossible. It has survived the inferno. And it's just the beginning. June 10, 1944, 4 miles inland from Omaha Beach, Normandy. The air is thick with the scent of wet soil, crushed grass, and cordite. American columns now crawl through a landscape unlike anything they've trained for, a claustrophobic labyrinth of Norman hedgerows. Ancient earthen walls topped with tangled roots and dense greenery. Inside his Sherman, Lieutenant Robert J. Parker peers through the periscope. Sweat dripping down his neck. "Feels like we're driving through tunnels," he mutters. The gunner, Private Earl Duggan, wipes the grime from his sight. "If there's a tiger behind one of these hedges, we won't see it till it's already cooked us." He's not wrong. The Germans have turned Normandy's pastoral fields into killing grounds. Hidden in the shadows of the bocage, Panzer Lehr divisions and SS Panzergrenadiers wait, their 88mm guns perfectly camouflaged. Their tanks positioned to ambush. When the first Sherman breaks into an open lane, the Germans strike. A shell rips through the air and hits the lead tank, an eruption of flame and black smoke. The rest of the column halts, every crewman's heart hammering. Over the radio, "Tiger. 11 o'clock. Distance, 300 yards. Parker shouts, "Reverse, reverse," as his driver slams the gears. The Sherman backing into cover. Across the line, Oberleutnant Kurt Weiss, commander of a Tiger I, lowers his binoculars. "Easy prey," he says calmly. His gunner nods, chambering another round. To the Germans, the Shermans still seem laughably outmatched. Their armor too thin, their guns too weak, their tactics too predictable. But this time, the Americans adapt. Within days, engineers in the field, some from the 2nd Armored Division, begin welding makeshift steel tusks onto the fronts of their Shermans. Designed to rip through hedgerows. They call them rhino tanks. With these crude but ingenious attachments, the Shermans can now burst through the walls that once trapped them, surprising German defenders who expected them to stay in the lanes. The next ambush fails, then another. And soon, what had been a death maze becomes an advancing front. Overhead, thunderbolts and typhoons roar, rocketing German tanks from above. Behind the lines, Allied supply trucks feed the armored columns like arteries. The Germans are no longer fighting a few tanks, they're fighting a machine of unstoppable scale. Oberleutnant Weiss realizes it as he watches another wave of Shermans crest the ridge. He mutters to his loader, "We destroy one, and 10 more come." Late June 1944 near St. Lo, Normandy. Rain pours from a low, gray sky. Mud churns under the treads of hundreds of Shermans lined up in rows. Waiting for the order to move, Across the valley, the faint rumble of German guns echoes like distant thunder. Inside one of those tanks, Lieutenant Robert J. Parker listens to the radio crackle, the voice of Colonel George Patton's subordinate unit commanding the advance. Hold positions until air support clears the grid. Then roll. He looks around at the horizon. Through the drizzle, he can see it, a vast line of movement stretching as far as his eyes can see. It's not just tanks now. It's trucks, jeeps, bulldozers, half-tracks, a convoy of steel, dust, and determination. This is what the Germans never understood: logistics wins wars. Meanwhile, on the German side, Oberst Hermann Kruger, commander of the 2nd Panzer Division, leans over a map inside a dark farmhouse headquarters near St. Lo. His face is lined with exhaustion. His aide, Lieutenant Vogel, points to a scout report. Enemy armor advancing from the west. Dozens of Shermans, supported by infantry. Kruger frowns. Dozens? You mean a company? Vogel shakes his head. Sir, it's more like a river. Kruger stares in silence. Days earlier, they'd destroyed 10 Shermans in one ambush. 2 hours later, a new column appeared, as if conjured from thin air. He slams his fist on the table. Where do they keep coming from? Vogel hesitates before answering. From America, sir. Back on the battlefield, the answer reveals itself in the sky. Dozens of C-47s drone overhead, dropping supplies onto temporary airfields. Allied engineers lay steel mats across the muddy ground, building landing strips overnight. Within hours, the P-47 Thunderbolts are taking off again, striking German tanks before they can even move. The Shermans below coordinate with the aircraft, marking targets with smoke shells. When a German Tiger tries to reposition, a Thunderbolt swoops down, unleashing rockets that tear it apart. For the first time in the war, tank and pilot fight as one. Inside his tank, Parker grins as another Tiger explodes in the distance. They're not laughing now, he mutters. Behind him, Private Duggan chuckles darkly. Guess not, sir, guess not. Across the field, the remnants of the Panzer Lehr division begin to withdraw, their once proud columns reduced to smoking wrecks. Everywhere, the Shermans push forward, through hedgerows, over bridges, across shattered towns. They're not the strongest, not the thickest armored, not the most elegant, but they keep coming. And now, the German officers who once called them Ronsons are watching the impossible unfold. They're being overrun by a machine that shouldn't have won. As the rain lets up, Lieutenant Parker climbs out of his tank. He looks over the valley, a patchwork of burning Panthers, twisted steel, and retreating figures in gray. He whispers, almost to himself, "We did it." The horizon glows orange as night falls, the fires of Normandy flickering like stars on the ground. The laughter that began in 1943 has fallen silent. In its place, only disbelief remains. July 25, 1944. Operation Cobra. Near St. Lo. The dawn sky burns red with the reflection of thousands of Allied bombers overhead. The air trembles as B-17s and B-24s open their bomb bays, unleashing a storm that shakes the earth itself. In the fields below, German panzer units brace behind hastily dug positions. The noise is unbearable, a metallic shriek of the world tearing apart. When the smoke clears, the landscape has changed. Craters stretch across the horizon like open wounds. What was once a fortified front is now a wasteland. The Sherman tanks begin to move. Rows upon rows emerge from the dust, their silhouettes distorted by the heat waves rising from the rubble. Engines roar in unison, hundreds of treads grinding forward. To Oberst Hermann Kruger, still commanding the remnants of the 2nd Panzer Division, it looks like something out of a nightmare. He raises his binoculars and mutters, "Mein Gott, there are hundreds of them." His adjutant, Lieutenant Vogel, stands beside him, speechless. All around them, communication lines are gone, their air cover is gone, fuel reserves, gone. The German war machine, once feared and unstoppable, is choking. The Sherman, the tank that had been the punchline of a joke, is now the symbol of Allied domination. It's not just a tank anymore, it's a statement. For every Sherman destroyed, another 5 appear. For every Tiger that breaks down, a dozen Shermans keep rolling. Kruger lowers his binoculars, exhaustion and disbelief in his voice. It's not their tanks, he says quietly. It's their factories. He watches one of his last Tigers retreat. Its crew desperate, the engine sputtering for lack of fuel. Nearby, an M4 passes by a wrecked Panther, its white star gleaming through the dust. For the first time, Kruger doesn't feel anger. He feels respect. Across the front, the Allied machine in motion. From Caen to Avranches, the Allies move like an industrial tide. Convoys of Shermans push through villages, followed by trucks carrying spare treads, fuel drums, and ammunition crates stacked like dominoes. Behind them, mobile repair crews weld, patch, and repaint damaged tanks on the spot. Some Shermans even carry spare engines on their decks, ready to keep going no matter what breaks. Everywhere, the sound is the same, steel in motion. General Omar Bradley watches from a command jeep as the breakout unfolds. He turns to his aide and says, "We're not just fighting the Germans. We're burying them under production." In the skies. Above them, P-51 Mustangs and Typhoons sweep the roads, destroying any retreating German armor. The once feared Luftwaffe is barely a shadow, its fuel depots bombed. Its airfields shattered. The German army, starved and surrounded, begins to crumble. Everywhere they turn, they see it, that same rounded turret, that same boxy frame, that same unmistakable tank. The M4 Sherman. The machine they laughed at has become the face of inevitability. The final blow. As Allied armor cuts through France, German generals in Berlin receive the reports with growing despair. Panzer divisions reduced to half strength. Ammunition shortages. Entire columns stranded for lack of gasoline. The myth of the invincible Tiger lies in ruins, too heavy. Too few. Too late. And the Americans? They're already thinking ahead, to Paris. To the Rhine. To Berlin. Because when your tanks come by the tens of thousands, there's no need to stop. August 1, 1944 Avranches, France. The breakout is complete. Allied tanks pour through the gap, racing south and east. The German lines have collapsed. In the chaos, a captured German officer is brought before an American major. His face is pale, his uniform stained with dirt and sweat. The major offers him a cigarette. The officer hesitates, then accepts. After a moment of silence, he says softly, almost to himself, "Your tanks, they were not the best. But they were everywhere." The major nods, lighting his own. That's the idea. The two men stand in silence as another convoy of Shermans rumbles past, an endless procession of dust. Diesel. And victory. The German officer watches them disappear into the distance. The laughter that once filled training fields in France and Poland is gone forever. In its place, the quiet realization of a truth that will echo for generations. In war, perfection loses to persistence. May 1945, Bavaria. The war is over. A Sherman tank sits quietly by the side of a rural road. Its hull covered in dust and battle scars. Kids from a nearby village climb on its turret, their laughter innocent, unaware of the history the machine carries. Across the world, veterans remember it differently. Some curse it, for its thin armor, its fires, its noise. Others revere it, for its reliability, its power, its ability to bring them home. In truth, it was never meant to be glorious. It was meant to win. And it did. The German officers who mocked it in 1943 couldn't have imagined that this simple, unassuming tank would roll from Normandy to the heart of Germany, across rivers, cities, and history itself. When they laughed, they saw a machine. When it rolled through Normandy, they saw a nation.